Hello, thank you for joining us for the board meeting tonight. Just a few housekeeping items before we get started. When you joined, you heard as an audience member that you are in listen only mode. If you'd like to speak during public comment, please use the raise your hand function to indicate to me that you would like to speak, and I will unmute you to do so. The raise your hand function is shown by a little hand icon on your screen. Please know your webcam will remain off and your comment will be audio only. And now I'll turn things over to President Grau to begin the meeting.
Call to order the regular board meeting of the Park Ridge Park District Board of Commissioners. It's Thursday, March 3rd at 7 p.m. Would you please call the roll, Marianne?
Commissioner Bundy?
Here.
Commissioner Bowe?
Here.
Commissioner Coyne?
Here.
Commissioner LeDuc?
Here.
Commissioner Hulting?
Here.
Commissioner Tuttle?
Here.
Commissioner Grau?
Here. Does anyone want to add, amend, or delete an item to the current agenda? Seeing none, I'll move on. Is there any public comment on non-agenda items? There's no one in the room? No. Okay, we'll move on to Executive Director report. Take it away, Gail.
Thank you, President Grau. Good evening, everybody. It is a new day indeed with no masks as of February 28th. I don't need to tell anybody this. The mask mandate ended in Illinois and in Cook County. This did affect all of our programs and facilities, so masks are now optional, and vaccine testing is no longer required. So that is something that we've been waiting for at the agency for a long time. So things are going well, of course, with that. Now, DCFS was a little delayed in getting their approval. And so the staff, again, dealt with angry parents and a lot of additional stress from the situation. So let's hope this is the end of it. And I cannot commend the staff. I guess more, it's just hard to explain how much the staff has appreciated, the frontline staff, the managers, supervisors, everybody that's been dealing with the concern, and we understand it, but the concern and some of the overreaching comments that we've received. So let's hope for all of us that this pandemic is coming to a close, knock on wood. There is also effects with the board meetings, as President Grau and I have been going back and forth about a lot this week. And I'm going to let Dirk explain that, but I'll start it out by saying I can do a very simplified version of it, and he can add into this. But if the governor extends the emergency order, which the current emergency order is still in place, if the governor extends the emergency order again, then we will have a choice. Our president will have a choice whether to meet in person, hybrid, or completely remote. If the governor does not extend the order, which I believe it expires this week, and Dirk can tell us the dates, then we go back to as normal in the boardroom and in person only, and it goes back to the original rules of when you can attend the meetings remote, which is a business reason or a family emergency reason as well. So that's where we're at, and the emergency order has not expired unless it happened today, right before this meeting. But Dirk, can you chime in? And I think I'm on the right track there. And
yeah. So the governor's order goes through March 5th. I lost part of some of what you said, Gail. So
that's okay. Just you can repeat it. That's fine.
So the governor's order goes through March 5th. That underlying declaration of emergency is essential to anything about how we meet. Under the Open Meetings Act, as the legislature changed it, that has to be in place before we can meet remotely. As soon as that emergency declaration goes away, we have to have a physical quorum in person for the meeting. And then it's the old rules about how people can participate electronically. So we have a policy in place. You just have to be, one of the usual exceptions, which is you're away on business, away for health reasons or other emergency. Now, health reasons gets quite a bit more expansive in these days of masking and COVID and vax and everything else. That being said, though, those are the reasons, and we still have to have a quorum of y'all present at the designated physical location for the meeting. We aren't going to know what the governor's going to do. He doesn't do anything before 4:30 on a Friday, apparently. And so we expect tomorrow that we'll learn possibly about 4:30 whether or not he's going to continue it to the 5th. So we'll see. The problem is further compounded by the fact that he frequently backdates his orders. So the last 2 extensions, he didn't get around till 3 days after they technically expired, and then he told us that he had in fact extended them. And that bad habit of his caught up with him in that school case. That's why the appellate court voided the appeal originally, because he let things expire and didn't get to them, and then bad things happened. So that's where we're at.
So that's really all I have, unless anybody has any questions. If you want to talk further about that, President Grau,
Yeah, I
in terms
just
of what
wanted
we're going to do as a district, or?
Right. What we're looking at now, and I just counted, we have 7 mics up here, so we're thinking of having a mic per commissioner, so we're not right next to each other. But obviously, you would need a mic too, Marion. So, and then maybe the staff in the audience. So that's what we're looking at right now.
Starting for the next meeting, correct? Is that?
Right.
I guess if there's any objections to that, you want to talk about that now, or you want to do that offline?
I don't have any objection. I just want clarification. So, I mean, I think it's fine. I don't know how much the microphones cost and whatnot, but if each of us have our own mic, that just eliminates us having to lean over right next to a person and talk, right? That's the plan.
I think what we were looking at is that we wouldn't have to sit right next to each other, that there might be a few feet between each other. So it's not as much the mic. I mean, we could even swing the mics back and forth. It's more just a little bit of wingspan. So it looks like we haven't mentioned that to Marianne yet. So we'll get with you and see what works the best. I just think people probably don't want to be sitting, on top of each other like we did before. Most of the other, the school board and the city council, their tables are much more expansive. So we're just trying to make people feel comfortable.
So I think what we're going to do is exactly what you're saying about every other seat in the boardroom here, and then I will probably have to share a mic with one of the commissioners, and then the staff will be in the back room, and when they need to speak, they will go up to the podium to speak. So we can do that for a little while, as you guys are comfortable.
Any other feedback? If anybody has feedback just offline, you can tell me that too.
So would we, so you're proposing that we would go full in person, but with this change for the next meeting? That's fine.
Yeah, it's not determined, but that's what we're looking at.
Right, okay.
We just wanted to make sure that Gail was back before we decided. I didn't want to be deciding this all when she's on vacation. So, and it actually worked out that we didn't come back this time because she is still in a family situation, so she's able to go remote. So if everybody's good with that, I think that's what we're going to do.
Yeah, I do want to point out, being present here, it is a little bit crowded. So anyway, that we might, I think the word wingspan is good, because I do feel like when we're sharing microphones, we are, almost breathing on top of each other. Not quite sure if I'm ready for that.
So yeah, I think the situation is that we would have to share the microphones, because we wouldn't be able to, I would doubt we'd be able to get, this is a custom situation in the boardroom. So, I mean, we can certainly try, but I'm guessing we couldn't get more microphones by then, but we can certainly try to order them if that's what the board thinks would make them
I think I misunderstood President Grau's comment. That's all. That was my fault. So I'm fine with, I'm actually fine with all of it. I'm not uncomfortable any more uncomfortable than usual sitting next to Commissioner Tunnel. So that, and as a matter of fact, I would say that being the case, that might make more room for other people to be further spread apart if they're more comfortable. In other words, if John and I agree that we can sit here.
But you didn't ask John yet.
Well, no, I've
been here the whole time.
Right, he's been here the whole time. I haven't asked him, but we could have an offline conversation about that. And so, if that makes it easier for us to get people around and properly spaced, as long as whatever everybody's comfortable with is what I'm kind of getting at.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is our next meeting is going to be pretty long, so you might be okay with it for a little while, but maybe after an hour you're not okay with it. So let's spread out, and we can bring it closer together as people get more used to freedom.
Okay. That's all I had.
Even
unless
for all
somebody
of
has a
you,
question.
I'm next to Elbows Lucars over there, so good for you.
All right, thank you, Gail. And now
welcome.
we'll turn it over to Buildings and Grounds with Melissa. Commissioner Hulting, you ready? Your night.
Yes, it's my night. I know it's all buildings and grounds, Terry. So I am going to go ahead and read the motion, and then we can discuss. So for the fire alarm, so I move to approve Fox Valley Fire and Safety as the lowest responsible bidder for the Centennial Activity Center fire alarm and panel replacement bid in the total amount of $69,833, and to authorize the executive director to execute and deliver such agreement. Can I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Terry, I read the memo. We read the memo. Anything else you want to say? You want to share with the board about the fire alarm?
No, we're just excited that it came in under bid. So, and if you'll notice, we did in the budget table at the bottom, I did add the recommended additional contingency that FGM recommended, and that's built into it. We're still significantly under bid. So, but we're happy that that's the case this time. So, yes.
I just don't, I was surprised that we had a bid management, or is that what you'd call what FGM did? Did we expect we were going to need that?
I'm sorry, what? The construction management?
Oh, no, the bid, that they had to go through the bid and do work on the bidding.
Oh, you mean the review of the bids?
Right.
That's pretty common. I mean, it's done either by our consultants or ourselves, depending on the project and the size and scope. And something like this that's as technical as it is, that's built into our agreement with them on the front end, because we anticipate the fact that we have a very, a large, technically difficult and challenging project. We want to make sure that we're vetting these, and that the conversation is to go through these with the contractors, make sure that they understand all the different, key aspects of the project. So. Yeah, and I think FGM does a nice job with this.
Yeah, I just didn't expect this project, perhaps. Maybe that's how I should say it. It just didn't seem like it was going to be that complex, but reading through it, it sounds like it obviously was. Yeah. And we're hedging our bets that the assumptions that the lowest bidder made, if they don't turn out, we do have money to cover the assumptions that they made.
Yeah, I have no reason to. Yeah, we do have money to cover it, but I have no reason to believe that Fox Valley Fire and Safety won't be able to successfully navigate this project. They are our current maintenance vendor for this property, actually for all of our sites, and so they're quite familiar with the facility and the system. So that probably worked to their benefit when they were bidding this project.
Any other questions for Terry? I just wondered, there were multiple bids that were missing information, and I don't know if I remember and count. I know I haven't been on the board that long, but Is that a normal thing that there are multiple bids that don't submit all they need to submit? Like the one that just put in the patch and paint and not.
Yeah, it happens from time to time. I think with those two, what seemed to be the case was that these were going to be subcontractors to someone's contract, and they weren't as part of a bigger bid. So I mean, obviously J&K Painting is not going to be coming in and doing a fire alarm renovation. So it was just, I think those were just kind of misses. They might have been, companies that weren't as familiar with how the process in this project works, and so they
Okay.
put it in not really understanding it. So
Okay. All right. Any other discussion or questions before we vote? All right, Mary Ann, can we have a roll call for the vote, please?
Sure. Commissioner Bundy,
Yes.
Commissioner Bowe,
Yes.
Commissioner Coyne,
Aye.
Commissioner Leduc,
Yes.
Commissioner Hulting,
Yes.
Commissioner Tunnel,
Yes.
Commissioner Grau.
Yes.
All right. And then we have some information on upcoming projects that we're going to vote on, I believe, next time, most of these. Do you want to take them one by one, Terry, and talk about?
Sure. Yeah, so we'll start. It's page 8 on the PDF. I have a memo on the JC Park tennis and basketball court replacements. But what I'll remind the board is that, these courts were in such disrepair that we had to close them a few years ago. We had anticipated doing a less invasive process to resurface them. However, upon beginning that process, we determined that they had deteriorated to the point where a full depth renovation was necessary. To make, for the cost, it was important to do that for the longevity of the project to be successful. So we've continued down that path and recently bid out the project. And in fact, we have opened the bids. I will let the board know that the bids did come in over budget, but we're still in the process of reviewing and vetting them. So once we complete that process, we'll have a recommendation for the board at the next meeting. So.
Any questions on this one?
How much over? Percentage-wise?
Double. It was very much over, so we need to go through the process and make sure that we've checked through and make sure there was no errors in anything. So, but it was quite a shock to us when we opened it.
How many years?
Is that,
No, sorry.
Go ahead, Joan.
How many years has JC been closed now?
I think 2.
2, and
I have to
this
look
is the third
specifically,
season?
but I think it's been around 2 years now.
All right, and this would be the 3rd season, right? Okay.
Was the reason for the increase, was it supply costs or labor costs or both?
I'm not sure, and I want to, be careful that we don't get too far into this because we're still in the process of vetting and reviewing everything. So I don't want to be, hiding from the board that the bids came in over budget, but I don't want to get too far into it at this point.
Gotcha.
Review process. So,
John, did you have something?
Yeah, I just wondered, the scope of the project, how long are we looking at for the basketball courts to be shut down? Because I know that gets some heavy use. Since I live by there, I walk past there about daily, and that thing is used from about 6:30 in the morning all the way up till the park closes or a little after.
Yeah, I think, once we get to the point of renovating, I think we're going to be about 5 to 6 months under construction, and so those basketball courts would be closed for that duration. Fortunately, they're not in such disrepair that they're currently still open, so the basketball courts obviously haven't been closed. But when we do get to the point of starting construction to completion, it's about 5 to 6 months, I believe.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else? All right, we can move on to tree trimming. Seems pretty straightforward.
Yeah, it is pretty straightforward. This is an operational bid, and We do this every so often just to have some, of our larger trees trimmed and make sure that they're, healthy and we don't have any, dead limbs accumulating. And additionally, it also helps us get a relationship with a tree contractor, so it's a little bit easier to get someone in if we have urgent needs and things like that. So we didn't do this in 2021, but we did do it in 2020. And just based on our needs and the cycle of when we need to prune certain parks, it was appropriate for us to do it again this year. So.
Any questions about this? This will come back on the April 7th meeting.
Correct.
Any questions on the tree trimming?
Just for 1 year?
It's for 1 year, but it has an option to extend it for 2 additional at the same cost. So, but we've identified the certain trees using our inventory, and so we could use the same diameter, size, and identify that cost and give them additional trees if everyone's interested in doing that. So.
Any other questions about the trees? All right, putting green.
So the existing putting green at Oakton is original as far as I'm aware. It's in really poor condition. Manager Dolan has told us that it's like basically putting on concrete, which is not what the the intended surface is there. So after a bit of discussion with Manager Dolan and some research, we came to the conclusion that the Celebrity Greens has a superior product, and we think would be the best fit for our needs out there. We solicited a cost and proposal, and plan to bring to the board the approval for this at the next board meeting. I do want to point out that this particular product, Celebrity Greens, the procurement method is such that they have a local vendor, and because of our location, no matter who we want to get this product from, we would always be brought right back to this vendor. So, so we don't have the opportunity to really put this out for a competitive bid since we want to use this particular product. So, in working with and discussing with our attorney, it's appropriate for us to approve this. We'll have to make a determination that it's a sole source and this is not a competitive bidding when we make the approval at the next meeting. So.
Any questions
Terry,
about the putting?
So Terry, I have to agree that I got a chance to play on or practice a little putting over there this past season, and that green is exceptionally fast. I mean, it's almost. I've got a young golfer that I'm hoping to, in my family, is trying to learn how to golf, and I keep thinking this isn't the best way to teach her how to putt. But so I agree that this kind of a improvement needs to be made. But do you know what the year was that was first installed?
I don't. I would have to get back to you on that.
Yeah, just curious how much life we got out of it, and if it ever was. I imagine over the time it's probably gotten worse, but do we have an idea of how long it would be, life expectancy for this improvement?
My understanding is this is a 15 to maybe 20 year.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else on the putting green? All right,
I just want to say it's kind of alarming the prices we're getting on some of these capital.
I should point out with this particular one, we had reached out to and done some research on pricing prior to budgeting. And while we were finalizing everything this year, we double checked with the contractor, and they had realized that they did not give us prevailing wage prices initially. So this particular one is one where it was more of a miss on our end that we didn't budget appropriately. Sorry, you muted, Commissioner Grau.
So 20,000 in labor?
Yep. Yeah.
And how long will that, what's the timeline on that project?
You know, I'm not exactly sure on the timeline for that, but I can bring that with me next week or next board meeting when we go to approve this.
Hopefully it'll be ready for the season.
Yeah, my guess is it will not be before we start and open, because we open that facility pretty early on, and you have to have appropriate conditions. Plus, there could be some lead time on product availability. But
Right.
I think because of where it's at, and pending conversations with Manager Dolan in April, we'll certainly want to try to get going after it as soon as we can and have construction ongoing while the facility's open, I would think. But
Is that something free for people, or do you have to pay to do the putting green?
I believe it's free, but I will let April correct me.
Okay.
That's correct.
Okay, thanks.
Will the footprint of it increase, stay the same, be smaller, Terry?
It's anticipated to be the same.
Anybody else? All right, Hinckley Pool House roof. Anything to say on
Yes.
this one?
Yeah, this is actually for multiple roofs around the district. We have the flat portion of the roof at Hinckley Pool. We have the roof at Solomon Cottage, and then the roof at the Emery Building at Prospect Park. All three of these roofs are in poor condition and in desperate need of replacement repair. And so we've solicited, we've actually looked at this through a couple different ways, and we had prepared for this by reaching out to some local vendors and getting some pricing from them. We contemplated the idea of putting together a bid, which would have required us to hire an engineer to develop specs at a cost to the district and put it out to bid. And ultimately, after considering those options, we decided it was best to reach out through a joint purchasing agreement, which is something that I know the city does and the school district does quite often for projects such as this. And we were very pleased with the number that we got back. And so we'll intend to bring the number back, or this for approval with the board at the next meeting. But we do anticipate this being under budget.
Is Solomon Cottage the one right next to Wooler's, that like the shingles are always on the ground?
Oh, that's actually Emery.
Okay,
Solomon
all right.
Cottage is a historical building up front, and
Okay.
they had a small leak this last year, and we had done some patches in the past, and we just invested a significant amount of money, albeit they're reimbursing us for it. It's still our building. We think it's important that we maintain and manage those. So.
Anything else on the roofs? It'll come back the 16th. And finally, the RTUs at the fitness center.
Yeah, so we have a number of RTUs at the fitness center, and every year we're looking to replace a couple of them just to keep up with a regular replacement schedule. These two units are up for replacement based on their useful life and life expectancy and the current conditions. We are using a similar purchasing process as we did last year, as that was something new, but it worked out very successfully for us. And it was very easy to streamline the process. So we're taking that same approach this year. We're waiting for the finalized quote, but anticipate having it for the next meeting, at which time we'll be requesting approval from the board to move forward.
Any questions or discussion on this one?
Oh, it's great to hear we're using the purchasing alliances.
Yeah, we look to do that wherever we can, and I have to give Manager Meunier some credit, and she's really done a good job of kind of digging through and finding a couple of new opportunities over the last few years, which has really helped us out with some savings and time, as well as just overall project costs. So.
All right, anybody else? Last call for buildings and grounds. And seeing no one waving at me, I will turn it back over to President Grau for any new business.
Terry, don't go to sleep yet.
I was gonna say, I guess I sat still for way too long there.
Okay, new business. Is there any new business? Oh, come on. Nothing? Hearing none? I move to adjourn the meeting of the Board of Park Commissioners. Can I have a second?
Second.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All right, all in favor of adjourning, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, we are adjourned. Thank
Okay.
you.
Pretty.
Thank you.
Aye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Hurry home, Gail.
I will.